Arjun Erigaisi executes a very nice surgical strike on the chessboard. However, once his pieces get inside the enemy territory, he is met with stiff resistance. But then Arjun uses a weapon invented by the fourth world champion to break through the position. What is the weapon that he used? How was he able to crash through the defenses? All of that in this game. Let's begin. So white opens the game with knight f3, Arjun plays d5. This game was played in the 2024 Chess Olympiad with India taking on Serbia, and this was the board 3 clash. White plays g3, Arjun goes knight c6, developing his knight, d4 was played, and now Arjun plays the move bishop f5, bishop g2, and the knight lands on b4. Arjun is immediately threatening this beginner fork, but of course white is an experienced grandmaster, he is not going to fall for it, he develops the knight and protects this pawn. Now Arjun goes e6, opening the diagonal for this bishop. c3, kicking away the knight drops, and now white asks this b7 pawn, who's protecting you? So Arjun's rook is immediately there to respond, and he simply guards the b7 pawn. Now there comes knight h4. White wants the double bishop advantage. Arjun says, no, let me challenge your bishop. But white says, no, thank you, I want your bishop. So the bishop has to drop back, and unfortunately now for Arjun, white has the bishop pair. So whenever you have the bishop pair, you want to open the position. So his opponent plays the move e4, opens up the position. After this move, I checked my opening database and I found out that there is one game that is played, and in that game black played the move b5 and went on to lose the game. So it is very likely that Arjun's opponent here was aware of that game and he was trying to follow that game. However, Arjun came up with a new move, showed his opening preparation, and he went knight to f6. A new move in this position, at least according to my database. Now his opponent went bishop g5, pinning the knight. Arjun simply unpinned it with the move bishop e7. Now white took bishop into f6. How would you recapture that? Question to you. Now many players here would go bishop into f6, and this is still a fine move to make. However, Arjun decides to play the move g into f6, and it kind of looks like he's damaging his structure. However, there is a very interesting point behind taking g into f6, and there is a very interesting concept that Arjun is following that you'll soon see in a few moves. So g into f6 was played, ed5, ed5, and now the knight dropped to c2. Now Arjun is like, okay, this knight is kind of restricted by a white's pawn, so let me get it to a better square. How would you do it? So Arjun in the game decided to play knight a5. He first attacked the queen, but oops, queen to b5 check, seems like this knight is gonna die. But hey, Arjun is not gonna miss these kind of elementary tactics. He plays c6, attacks the queen, protects the knight, and kicks the queen back to e2. Now the knight comes to c4 and charges at this pawn. White defends with the move b3, kicks away the knight, and the knight drops back to d6. And from c6, this knight has managed to come to d6, which is a very, very good square for it. Because now it is also keeping an eye here, here. Very nicely located knight. And remember this is often where the knight should be when you have a structure like this. White decided to short castle. Now what would you play with black? Most players again would play a move like short castle here, but fortunately for India, Arjun is not like most players. He played the move here, king to f8. And I didn't understand the logic behind this move at first, but then after using a little bit of engine help, I'm gonna confess, and a little bit of my own brain, I discovered that one of the main ideas of king f8 is to keep this bishop protected. And now white went knight to e1. Now here is the point I want to highlight with the move g into f6. Now if the white knight comes to d3, it can never go to e5, because there is always this f6 pawn that is, taking this e5 square away from the knight. Now Arjun starts to poke at white's position a little. First he goes queen a5, asking, hey, who's defending this pawn? So the rook had to respond, and it went to c1. Now Arjun played the move knight to f5, keeping this bishop protected and also just getting this knight on, a little bit closer to black's territory. There came b4. So now Arjun's queen is attacked, but his queen runs back to c7. But what it has done is that Arjun has managed to, poke a little weakness in white's camp. Now suddenly you see this c4 square has become weak, and this could very well be a target for the knight. White went f4. Now once again this e4 square is also, kind of becoming a little bit of a weakness. Now Arjun decided to, begin his preparation for a surgical strike. So first he decided to start a confrontation with white here with the move a5. Now this pawn is, keeping an eye on this b4 pawn. How is white going to defend? That is the question. So white played the move a3, just keeping this pawn protected. Now Arjun played rook e8, asked this queen what she's doing there. So the queen had to go to d2. And now Arjun went knight d6. Now there is another threat to land on c4. White went knight to c2. Now Arjun went f5. A very nice move. There is a Capablanca rule that says that if you have a dark squared bishop, if you have a bishop of one color, your pawn should be on the other color. Arjun is following that principle here. Rook f1 was played, king g7 was played, and now white went rook a2. And Arjun now decided to get his preparation going for the surgical strike. He went rook a8. Now white played the move rook e to e1 back. And Arjun went bishop to f6. He has set up landmines. And the moment the white rook lands on one of these landmines, he's gonna die. So there is no invasion possible here. And often in chess, this kind of an open file is known as a useless open file. So even if, let's say, there is an open file for your opponent, you can try to make it ineffective by, planting such landmines, by getting your pieces to control important squares on that particular file. Rook e2 was played, and now begins the surgical strike on the queen side. Arjun plays the move a into b4, a into b4, and boom! The first rook has landed on the white territory. Now there comes this rook back because, white has to fight this invasion somehow. So he's trying to mobilize his forces. Arjun meanwhile brings his other rook as well on the a file. So there is a full invasion going on from the queen side. White plays rook a1. Now Arjun plays the move queen to b6. White gets his other rook to defense as well. Okay, so white is trying to put up as much resistance as he can on the queen side. And it looks like there is no way for black to break through. But here is where Arjun decides it's time to get out the weapon created and invented by the 4th world champion Alexander Alekhine. And that weapon is the Alekhine Gun, which comes out after the move rook a4, queen c1 and queen a7. And this is the Alekhine Gun. These two rooks and this queen on the same file, this is known as the Alekhine Gun, when you have two rooks in front and the queen standing from behind. So suddenly you can see three of black's strongest piece are putting a lot of pressure on one particular point. It's like, your tanks, your cannons, your rockets, all of them are aiming at one particular area in the opponent territory. It's gonna be very, very dangerous for your opponent to defend that area. The reason why this is called the Alekhine Gun is because Alekhine had played one of the first games where he displayed this concept in action. There's a lot of pressure on this a1 rook, so white took rook into a2. Just to show you how dangerous it can be, if let's say white had played a time pass move like this, there is suddenly this tactic and black simply wins this piece, after which winning the game is quite elementary because black has an extra piece here. So here white took, black took, and now white played the move rook b2, which is again a mistake. It would have been better to play a move like king h1. However, it is still black who keeps the pressure on white's position. But rook b2 now loses material kind of by force. Arjun gets his cavalry into the attack with the move knight to b5. The cavalry comes from near the border, keeping an eye on this c3 pawn. It is going to be very difficult to defend this c3 pawn, since if white takes on a2, let's say black is going to take queen a2, and it's very hard to defend this pawn. For example, you can go knight e1, but queen b3 wins this pawn. Or let's say if you go queen d2, this is even worse because you're pinning and you're just losing this knight on c2. So that's why here, after this move, white played rook b3, and that leads to an even faster collapse. Can you find the tactic for black? Black to play and win. So now Arjun played the move knight takes c3. White took the knight, but now there comes bishop to d4 check and knight to d4, and you may think the move is queen to d4, but no, that is not the move. The move here is to go rook a1, which is what Arjun finds in the game. And the point is, there is one pin from here, there is another pin from here, and white cannot avoid losing a lot of material. Let's say white takes, then Arjun will take and win this rook. Or even if let's say white plays a move like rook to, it's just very hard to find a good move for white. So white basically resigned in this position, and Arjun's win on this board helped India to win this match against Serbia. By the way, Arjun is also good at playing in the end games, and you can check out one such game right here.